When I was 12 years old, I remember looking at the body of my friend and simply being disgusted by it. I didn't know why it mattered to me. It never had bothered me before. Her legs didn't look like the ones in the magazines or TV shows I watched. So I looked her in the eyes and told her to her face that she was fat. It truly wasn't to hurt her feelings, but more so to motivate her to work harder and start looking like those girls on the billboard. I wanted her to be able to find acceptance and love, something I thought would be impossible given that she didn't fit the beauty standard. That same girl went on to develop an eating disorder. She would starve herself, weigh herself, count every calorie, and spend hours exercising to make sure she didn't gain weight. She became distant from family and friends. She was terrified of food and her weight. She lost so much love for her body, and no matter how many pounds she lost, she could still only see herself as fat, and she hated the body she lived in. And this is a result of our society's fixation on diet culture and acceptance of weight bias. Weight stigma is defined as the discriminatory acts and ideologies targeted towards individuals because of their weight and size. Weight stigma are the words and actions that are a result of weight bias, and weight bias refers to the negative ideologies associated with obesity. Most stereotypes surrounding obesity label individuals as lazy, unmotivated, or lacking discipline. These lead to prejudice, discrimination, and social rejection. For most, I'll assume these are relatively new concepts. They certainly were to me just a few months ago, so allow me to point out some common examples you may not have realized relate to these. Things such as obesity being classified as a disease and the number of anti-obesity coalitions that run rampant demonstrate weight stigma. These insinuate that every individual with obesity is diseased and must change their body weight to not be considered sick. It teaches our society to fear becoming obese and ostracize obese individuals. In healthcare settings, the BMI scale, something unreliably comparing weight and height, is something we use to determine one's overall health. This dictates what treatment an individual can receive, and for those in large bodies, it means doctors neglect to ask patients questions about their habits, health, and well-being. Weight stigmatization is tolerated in society because of beliefs that the shame will motivate people to lose weight. However, stigma actually contributes to behaviors that worsen obesity and create barriers to healthy changes. In today's society, weight stigma is often introduced or experienced starting around age 3. Youth-targeted shows, media exposure, and one's social environment can be predictive of a child's experience or outward expression of weight biases. Weight stigma among youth is most often experienced as teasing and bullying, and this is the most frequent form of peer harassment. Youth are keenly aware at an early age that their weight status may affect their social relationships. One study found that more than 2/3 of 9 to 11-year-old children who perceive themselves as having excess weight believed they would have more friends if they could lose this weight. This victimization experienced in schools unfortunately holds lifelong consequences. Some of these include poor academic performance, lower self-esteem, anxiety, substance abuse, avoidance of physical activity, depression, and unhealthy methods of weight control. These children are also more likely to be obese in their adulthood and use eating as a primary way to cope with stress. Children and adolescents with severe obesity had quality of life scores that were worse than age-matched children with cancer. It's no surprise that children are impressionable. This is why the conversations you have about weight with children are so important. They hold a lot of gravity. These conversations are sometimes a reflection of parents' own experiences of weight stigma, and parents who internalize these experiences may engage in weight talk with their child and encourage them to lose weight to avoid being the target of weight-based teasing. And while the intentions are good, this encouragement often does more harm. Encouraging a child to change their behavior for the purpose of managing their weight is associated with body dissatisfaction. Other practices like making frequent comments about one's weight or the weight of others promotes adolescent practice of unhealthy weight control and the onset of depression. In contrast, parental conversations that focus on healthy eating or being physically active without talking about body weight have no negative health ramifications and may help to prevent disordered eating behaviors. These are the conversations we should be driving in order to move towards a healthier societal view of the human body. Our society has a fixation on helping everyone to achieve this healthy ideal, and the way advertised to do so is for those in larger bodies to lose weight to more closely resemble normative bodies. So really, this healthy ideal is just a reframing of the idea that thin is better. Those living in larger bodies are expected to dislike their bodies, despite the knowledge that body dissatisfaction has negative health effects, and are asked to engage in dieting practices deemed healthy weight loss strategies. The health behaviors promoted for fat individuals are often the same behaviors classified as disordered eating behaviors in normative bodied individuals. This double standard of health should be a huge red flag. We need to stop believing that losing weight will fix our lives. So instead of promoting disordered eating behaviors in large-bodied individuals, we need to focus on encouraging societal acceptance of a broader range of body shapes and sizes, and becoming more attuned to people's distress, regardless of body size. So how can we help? As a society, we should look to refute the idea that larger bodies are problematic. Recognize your own weight bias and look to challenge it. We need to recognize that dieting does not lead to better health and that weight is largely uncontrollable, so we can make space for diverse bodies. And finally, look to advocate to instate policies against fat discrimination in school and workplaces so that weight discrimination is no longer justified. When I was 12, I truly didn't know the weight of my words and how weight stigma that surrounded me in my life had so heavily influenced my own biases. If I could take back the words I said, I would in a heartbeat, because as I sit here 9 years later, as the girl who called herself fat, I'm still working towards eating disorder recovery. I wish that 12-year-old me could have seen that bodies are meant to be different and that weight doesn't determine health. However, this struggle makes me impassioned to advocate for change so we can stop the social perpetuation of weight stigma. Our world needs to shift its focus to become more about caring about being human, not about our body size. Practicing kindness and compassion to all will help us to build a more gentle and trusting world that focuses on the parts of ourselves that really matter. So I encourage you to show love to everybody and love every kind of body, because that is the way it should be.